My name is Yves Habumugisha, and I'm World Vision National Director in Niger, in West Africa. World Vision works in Niger since 1994. It has been 28 years of services to the people of Niger. And the work of World Vision Niger includes humanitarian response to the needs, to the humanitarian needs, crisis, hunger crisis, refugee and internally displaced people's crisis, as well as development work. Development work includes integrated programs in education, access to clean water, hygiene and sanitation services, health, maternal health, and support to health facilities, as well as child protection and food security. So it's a variety of programs that aim at improving the well-being of children as we aim to achieve life in its fullness for all children of Niger. Niger is already one of the poorest countries. I hate to say it's the poorest, but in terms of Human Development Index, Niger ranks the lowest. And in terms of access to basic services, Niger is one of those countries where needs are everywhere, in every sector, in every region. And as you would think of this situation, the current crisis adds to the vulnerability of people and abject poverty. When I say current crisis, I mean a multiple and multifaceted situation of a crisis. It includes conflict, internally displaced people as a result or a consequence of armed groups attacking villages and institutions and schools and facilities across the country, especially in the border areas with the neighbors, as a consequence again of the proliferation of armed and terrorist groups in the Sahel. It is a consequence as well of climate change. Niger is one of the highly affected countries in terms of climate change, with the desert expanding, with the season being extremely hot, and then in some situations also droughts or flooding. Those could be complex issues that in countries that are in desert, in the Sahel, there could be flooding. And all these are consequences of climate change. The pandemic of COVID-19 has extremely affected the capacity of the country to deal with some of the most acute challenges. As the country was already struggling with its health system, now this pandemic has even added another burden to the country. And then in all of this, what happens across the Sahel region with instability in some of the neighboring countries, I would cite Mali, I would cite Burkina Faso, I would cite Libya, all these have pressure and put pressure on Niger. So the situation keeps, I would say, deteriorating as a consequence of all these factors. And as a consequence, needs for the people of Niger are increasingly high. This means in November 2021, the government of Niger made an appeal following a failed harvest season. The government made an appeal for humanitarian assistance to cope with the hunger crisis. The government anticipated, as a result of the data collected, to launch an appeal. However, in November, we were talking about 3.3 million people that were in need of assistance. That figure has sharply increased between November and March, April. When you look at the data in March, this number has risen to 4.7 million people in a need of immediate humanitarian assistance to cope with the hunger crisis. So all these factors continue to cause extreme vulnerability, and any shock could take this even further. As another consequence of, will I call it globalization in a sense, whatever happens in a country, be it in a northern hemisphere or in the Western world, has also consequences on countries like Niger, even if they are thousands of kilometers away. I'm saying this to mention that the conflict in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, has also consequences on West Africa and on Niger. Niger being a landlocked country that depends mainly on imports of cereals, imports of fertilizers, imports of oil and gas. This conflict has caused soaring prices in Niger, and again adding to the burden of families that cannot feed their children, or families that have to make the difficult choice to skip some meals so that they can cope with the declining purchase power. So these are all factors that continue to weigh on the people of Niger. When I talk about 4.7 million in need of humanitarian assistance, immediate humanitarian life-saving assistance, it's not about statistics. It's not about numbers. It's about families that struggle to put food on the table. It's about children who have to skip school because there is no capacity for the family to provide for their lunch at school. It's about those children whose education will be affected because of being internally displaced. It's about those heads of families who are obliged to leave the family to go seek job opportunities so that they can bring some income to support the family. It's about putting those names and faces to this crisis to understand how this is a national crisis, but also a family crisis. It's a challenge, but in any challenge, there is opportunity. The people of Niger are very hopeful people. You will be surprised that despite this dim picture, these challenges, there is still a smile on the faces of people because they are hopeful. They know this is challenges. We have some victories. We have some victories in terms of giving opportunities to women. 55,000 women are enrolled in savings groups and income-generating activities. This is a victory. In a country where women have no power, have no education, this is a victory we are very proud of and grateful for. We have victories when we are able to celebrate that World Vision has completed over 1,600 boreholes, providing clean water to the people of Niger. This is a victory that gives us energy to continue. Despite the challenges, there are also changes, and impact is possible. Being able to restore hope and dignity with our 47,000 sponsored children, this is a reason to smile. This is a reason to hope. This is a reason to restore dignity and to give life in its fullness to these children. My wish and my prayer for Niger is a stable country where children can thrive, where they can live peaceful relations within their families, where the country that is one of the youngest in terms of demographics can embrace the future with hope, with dignity, and with commitment, where they can transform their lives and be as competitive young people as they could be in any other place. That our contribution will bring about change, lasting change and impact. My hope is that there will be time where humanitarian assistance will not be needed in Niger, where the people will take care of themselves. I have 3 key messages to give them. First of all, it's a message of gratitude for the generosity of the German people. Germany has been one of the key donors to humanitarian response in the Sahel and particularly in Niger. Germany, alongside Norway and Denmark and the UN, have organized conferences on the Sahel, conferences on the Lake Chad Basin, and mobilizing resources to support these countries. And Germany has been one of the key donors to climate change adaptation program. This is, it means a lot for the people of Niger and for the people of the Sahel. And Germany, alongside other G7 members, has committed to the food security funding or alliance. Of course, we are very thankful for the pledge of $4.5 billion to support this initiative, although there are huge needs. More efforts are needed. More countries should join and commit funding. So that is a message of gratitude to the German people. Second, I would like to thank the German people. Despite our own challenges in Niger and the Sahel, we are also aware of their efforts to welcome refugees from Ukraine, and we give them a message of gratitude for opening their doors and welcoming these people who are in need. And then third, it's a message of continued support to the people in need. The people of the Sahel are not privileged to be able to have clean water or to access food as they wish. All these children who are struggling with their education. We call upon the German people to continue donating to support these programs, to support programs by World Vision and other organizations, and to support through bilateral support the governments in the Sahel. So this is critical to save lives and critical also to save the planet as we invest in climate change adaptation programs. Climate change adaptation, climate change is a reality, and we need to all engage in adaptation mechanism. There are some messages or some methods that are low cost but can have long-lasting impacts. I would cite the farmers' natural managed resource natural regeneration, FMNR, as it is known, which is a land restoration method approach that helps farmers to restore barren land to productive land. It's an effort to plant trees. It's an effort to restore the ecosystem and the environment. Supporting these efforts is succeeding together.